The Expert Series is brought to you by Draw It Paint, the dry erase paint company that specializes in the highest quality of whiteboard walls available worldwide. Draw It Paint is constantly undergoing tests and procedures to ensure industry-leading, top-quality products with 3 selections to choose from. Recruit, Unique, and Limitless are guaranteed to suit all your dry erase paint needs.
Manager with Paramount Residential Mortgage Group. I started in the industry in about 2001, and over the last 18 years, I've seen the industry change a ton. I'm from a single mother household in urban Minneapolis. My passion is really for helping people within the community elevate to a place where they too can become homeowners and share. I know it sounds cliche, but I want to say share in the American dream, to become homeowners and create wealth for themselves. I believe that homeownership can create layers of legacy wealth throughout generations. And so to me, that's the people that I generally go after. I guess what you'd call my niche is the underserved population and communities. We do work with everybody. Again, I've been in this business for 18 years, so I've seen every single loan type or program that there is. And so a lot of people actually in other companies still to this day will reach out to me and ask me for, just different ways I'm able to get deals done. I tend to save a lot of business. So that's kind of my story. 18 years in this business, it shifted from going after transactions and making a commission to what can I do to advance people and communities, and in doing so, it's probably been the most productive I've been in my career is when I stopped focusing so much on the paycheck and started focusing on the end result, which was the consumer and the family that's buying the home. Once that became true to my heart, the business itself just exploded. And so these last couple of years have been great with PRMG.
Mm-hmm. Now, have you been in the Twin Cities kind of your whole life, or have you kind of bounced around?
You know what? My mom moved around a lot when I was a kid. So I was lucky enough to be able to live in San Antonio for a little bit. I lived in Abilene, Texas for a little bit. I lived in Michigan for a little bit. Primarily in Minnesota, between South Minneapolis and Northeast Minneapolis is where I grew up. But, I was lucky enough to see different cultures and experience new things. And I think that's helped me in my business because of different types of clients that I work with throughout, the community. I work with a lot of a pretty diverse population.
Mm-hmm. Now, you talked a little bit about the American dream and creating kind of generational wealth. Is that the American dream to you, just gaining that, comfort and that successful living?
Well, no, I think that once you own a home, you plant roots in a neighborhood and you become really part of that community. I mean, there's stats that shows that civic participation goes up. So kids are voting. The health factors are better. I mean, your educational scores go up because when you have people living within community together and they're not so transient, you start to build things outside of wealth that you can't ever find when you're renting. Hey, my lease is up at 6 months and this landlord sold the building. So now my kid's getting uprooted from this school and having to go to St. Paul. And that's actually what happened to me. I went to school in Burnsville for a little bit, and my mom wanted me in a magnet school because she was planning on moving to St. Paul. So every morning I'd have to get up and catch a city bus from Burnsville to downtown Minneapolis, from downtown Minneapolis to the U of M campus, from the U of M campus to my school, and then back every single day throughout the entire school year. And I noticed that by moving around to all those schools and constantly moving, because see, my mother wasn't a homeowner. I'm a first-generation homeowner in my family. And that I never was able really to plant roots, and I was always trying to make new friends and keep up with the kids in the new school. So my grades weren't always the best, and I felt like that was a big part of it. So I feel like once you become a homeowner, for instance, I work directly with the Edina Race and Equity Initiative to advance homeownership for minorities in Edina, and I know that a lot of these people that are moving around don't even have the option to go to Edina High School, which is rated one of the top high schools in the state. A lot of these kids move on to secondary education, and we're not seeing that when you take these. You know, if you look at the inner city numbers in North Minneapolis, the statistics are really low on people that are moving to secondary education. And if you look at the statistics in comparison to that with home ownership for minorities in North Minneapolis, it's like -1%, right? I mean, there's really zero home ownership for the people that live there. And so you start to see that in education, that the education for that community goes down. People don't even go and vote for, you know, at voting time for those school levies to add the extra wing and things like that, because they don't care, right, in rental communities. When you own and you live there, you make sure that you show up and you vote for what, you know, your kid's going to be using at school. So if they're going to be needing money for the education board for laptops or iPads this year, you're going to vote for that because you own in the community. So there's a lot of things that happen through home ownership, but wealth is a big part of it. You know, there is, you know, being a minority in this country, you have to realize that there are, you know, there's a demographic that has had an opportunity to get started a little bit hundreds of years sooner in the economic rat race. And so as a result, there's some catching up to do. So people have to realize that, you know, most of the United States billionaires became billionaires through home ownership or property ownership of some sort. And so, and I think that the other thing is that, you know, paralyzed by fear is a big issue that I try to help people walk through. You know, a lot of people are traumatized and they want to go buy a home, but they're afraid that somebody's going to kick them in the teeth and tell them no, that they're not good enough, or that they can't become homeowners. And when you can help pull that fear factor out of communities, you help to see them grow. And so that's, I know it's like a lofty mission, you know, it's a big, hairy, audacious goal. But I think that with, you know, the right determination, the right people around me, we can make a difference.
Mm-hmm. Now, do you think becoming a homeowner is one of the best ways to create stability in your life?
Yeah, absolutely. I would definitely say so. There's a lot of things that come with being a homeowner. Yeah, stability is number one.
Mm-hmm. Now, you're a firm believer in some of this stuff. Now, when did this kind of click for you?
You know, again, first 10 years was probably transactional. You know, I got in the business really young. And when I got in the business, anybody could do mortgages, really. If you could spell mortgage, you could be in the industry. And that's what went wrong with the economy in 2009. You know, banks started to foreclose on properties. So when I got in the business, you didn't have to be a whiz or a college grad. You just needed to be able to take a calculator and add up 1 + 1. And so for me, it was a paycheck. Everybody around me was making a ton of money. Mortgage officers, 18, 19, 20 years old, were making $200,000 to $500,000 a year, right? And so that was the culture of our industry at the time. And at that time, there was over 3,000 mortgage brokers in Minnesota. And then in 2009, so fast forward, you know, 9 years later or 8 years later, 2009, the industry started to crash and the regulations started to come down the pipe from the CFPB, Consumer Finance Protection Bureau. And they regulated a lot of people out of the industry. And we've seen it go from about 3,000 different competitor shops in Minnesota to less than 300 in 2009. And then I think at this time, I would say it's safe to say there's probably 30 brands or names doing business as mortgage brokers or lenders in the state of Minnesota. So I think that a lot of the people that didn't have the moral character to be in the business were kind of weeded out, and we've seen the damage that it did to our communities, and some of us decided to take a stance on that. Another part to this is that I was surrounded by some great mentors who really were faith leaders, you know, I'll just call it what it is, and they explained to me the benefits of advancing my marketplace and kingdom work together. And so, you know, not to go too far down that path, but just to explain that there was an awakening in myself that said, this isn't about a dollar, it's about people first. And then the moment I started taking that shift, it was a paradigm shift, then I knew that it made more sense. It was easier to get up and go to your job every day, you know. After 10 years of doing the same thing and chasing the dollar, it'll just become mundane. But when you have passion behind what you do, you wake up happy.
Hmm. And I think it kind of just turns into that 9 to 5 job instead of what you're actually passionate about, right? When you are, I guess, profit motivated.
Exactly, just defining purpose. And I know a lot of people always say, what is my purpose? That's a big question a lot of people ask, but I'm lucky enough to have maybe found and that's really, working with people, building roadmaps towards home ownership, showing everybody that it's possible. This is just what it takes.
The housing market crash was such a impactful moment in the 2000s and even today. Was that kind of the turning point for you where you realize like, this is something that I'm passionate about. I do want to make a difference in people's lives?
Yeah, it was a big part of it, absolutely. And we were a big part of the recovery for that. I think people don't realize how quick our economy did turn around after such a great recession that we had. And a lot of it was due to some of the stimulus programs that were rolled out. A lot of homeowners were able to keep their homes, and we were a big part of refinancing homes and lowering payments for people so that they could stay in their homes. And if at the rate we were going into foreclosure, we were really in trouble. And I think that the economy rebounded pretty quick from that. Due to those stimulus, the home affordable mortgage program or home affordable modification programs, home affordable refinance programs are put out as part of the stimulus package.
Hmm. And you kind of said how the people that weren't in it for the right reason were weeded out through that and after the housing market crash. You being a branch manager, do you have a lot of say in who you hires going forward?
I have 100%. Well, I shouldn't say 100%. I have a business partner, Clinton Rooney, but me and him absolutely are allowed to hire. PRMG really believes in us, and as long as the client, as long as that person passes the proper credit and background checks that any other loan officer would have to go through, they believe in our vision. We run the #1 branch for PRMG in the Midwest currently, by volume units, staff, and they believe in us, so they allow us to have a lot of free reins when it comes to hiring and decision making within our office.
Hmm. Can you tell us a little bit about what the team environment's like for you guys?
I'm sorry, one more time.
Can you tell us a little bit about what the team environment is like and kind of the atmosphere in the office?
Yeah, man, my team is awesome. So this past weekend, I was with one of my teammates, Santi King. He was running in a ultra. I don't know if you're familiar with those, but yeah, he was running in his second 100-mile ultra, and I was actually out there every time he came across the start-finish line, videotaping. I mean, he started at 1 in the morning on Saturday morning and went all the way until Sunday, right? So this is a long race on your feet, and so that shows some of the determination we have in our office. But the character of our office is basically people who care about other human beings. I just keep it simple. I have one of the guys in my office. He has a program that he put together that helps pair single mothers and to purchase duplexes and combine their income, things like that. I have another one of my teammates who coaches college track. We have another teammate on one of our teammates is actually a full-time actor. We let him go do that acting stuff, but then he comes back and crushes it. He was the #1 in the Midwest, Ryan McGrath, for the last 2 months straight. So what we believe is that everybody is unique, and we want to just be kind of more of a family, fun, laid back, cool environment where I would say we're a younger demographic than what you're going to find in most lending institutions. The average age of a loan officer is still about 50 to 55. So the younger loan officers are more rare due to regulation. Regulation makes it a lot harder for loan officers to get in the business. And then once you're in the business, you got to find somebody who really has time to train you. And if you're that good, you usually are just going to do loans. So it's one of those industries where you're finding a young group who cares about people and not chasing a check is extremely rare. I think that's pretty solid character. I think that.
Mm-hmm. Now you talk about some of these barriers to entry and how it's difficult because of regulation. Can you give some examples?
Yeah, I mean, everybody is required to take the SAFE Act test, which is you have to study for it. It's a 20-hour study course. The 20 hours sounds easy, but you have to pass the test and pretty much know everything within that 20 hours. So you're going to end up studying for a month to 2 months to get licensed. And then once you're in and you're licensed, you can't just go do loans. Every single program has 50 pages of guidelines to it, right? And so unless you've done mortgages So in some facet, you're going to need a really good mentor or trainer. Well, anybody that's really good is going to say, you can be on my team and you can do this for me because I'm going to be the loan officer. And then maybe 4 years from now, you can be the loan officer. When I got in, you were the loan officer. You signed your employment contract and voila, you're a loan officer, no regulation. So, I was able to learn a ton over 10 years and then shifted off to my own thing. But so over the last 18 years, obviously, I was able to be pretty self-taught. And I think that a lot of the guys who are in the business do that. So that when I got into business, there were already people who were doing it for 20 years, and the problem is that everything is shifting to technology. You have fintech companies that are really taking their stance in the market, like Zillow, Amazon's now doing loans. You have Open Door. You have these companies coming in and taking their place in the market. So a lot of the older generation, right, is, I say 55 to like 70, because there are people that age in the business. They're looking at the tech going, this isn't it. I'm going to stick with referrals. Well, you have to kind of be a hybrid of both right now. And so it's pretty difficult for a new person to get in without a strong.
Mm-hmm. Just to kind of bring it back to some of the mentorship you spoke on and what you've received throughout your career, has that role kind of changed for you? Have you kind of taken on that leadership and had mentees of your own?
I do, but I'm also still being mentored, heavily mentored. I'm part of different mentor programs, a Christian leadership program called the Master's Program. And so, yeah, I'm definitely being mentored. Without people, see, if you're the smartest guy in the room, find another, essentially is what it is. And so, yeah, I think that it's a little bit of both.
Now, where do you think that mantra kind of comes from with being the smartest guy in the room and having to leave?
It just is what it is. There was a kid named Richard that used to play basketball next door to my house. And he was about a year or two taller or older than me, but he was significantly taller than me and way better at basketball. And I used to go out there and get dogged by him every day. And my mom always told me, well, you don't want to go play against the kids you're good at beating or you play with because you won't get any better. And, whether she's right or wrong, I don't know, because I'm still terrible at basketball. But I feel like that there was some wisdom there, and I took that on in my life. And everything I do, I want to make sure that I'm around people who are smarter than me, have stronger faith than me, who have more money than me, who have a better family life than me, because then it's something that I can model after. And I think we're all, in some ways, a tree that bears fruit, right? And you are what you eat. And so if I'm around others that bear wise fruit, then I'm going to be more wise.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Absolutely. I think it's a good metaphor for life to have have this constant motivation to better yourself. Yeah. Now you've talked about some of the hobbies that your team has and with running and acting, and yourself, you've been playing a little bit of basketball. Can you tell us about some of the other stuff you like to do outside of work?
Yeah, I'm actually excited for the snow to come. I hope it's a warm, snowy winter because I like to, get out and ski. So this winter is going to be awesome for that. I'm part of a program called the Amplify Mission. What they do is we basically Shark Tank or examine emerging missions, nonprofit Christian missions. And what we do with them is we sit around and come up with ways we can help, ideas on how they can improve their business, how they can build their board, how they can better fundraise, how they can get more reach in the community, and we just sit around and we brainstorm that, and then I do some mentoring with the emerging missions there, just coaching. So I do that on the side. I have a program called the 3Ls Initiative. It's to listen, learn, and love. And what we do there is we bring some of those people that have encircled and mentored me into urban nonprofit organizations that support the abandoned inner city community. And we help shine a light on them. And then we listen from the directors on what the hurdles and successes have been. We learn from the participants on where they're at in their walk. And then we spread some love. We'll have like an ice cream truck show up or something if it's a kid organization or things like that. And then I get up at 7 a.m. sometimes, and have a boxing trainer show up, and we go at it downstairs and do it. I like boxing. I love watching boxing. So those are my hobbies. My team, we got, we're all getting together to go see a comedy show here coming up in the next 2 weeks. A few of us are going to be going down to the Christmas party in Florida. I mean, we are pretty tight knit.
Yeah, that's awesome. It sounds like you love to give back and really have a hand in your community. Where does this kind of come from?
From being there, man, and somebody giving me something. That's the end of the day. I'm not a silver spoon guy. I'm definitely not. And I've seen the worst of life. And I've also seen the best in people. And when those organizations were there to give me a Christmas tree. See, I had a child at a really young age. I have a 20-year-old son at Texas Tech. And I was 19 years old, so we had to rely on organizations to drop off presents and Christmas trees literally at my house. And one day I woke up, and it was already set up, this big giant white Christmas tree, because I was working overnight. And when I got up, I woke up at like noon, and I looked and there's this huge Christmas tree in my living room all foamed out. It's things like that I know that makes the world go. And then when I go places, I hate to see people without. I really do. And I only have so much. And so I know that through community, we can do more. We can cause more impact. Me as one person can only hand out so much. I only have so much to give myself. So.
Yeah. Now, do you think this love for the community would be the same for any city that you were in, or do you think Minneapolis specifically is kind of what built that?
Minnesota and Minneapolis definitely hold a really, good place in my heart. However, I'm all for going overseas to do mission work as well. So, wherever I'm called to be, and wherever the Spirit takes me is kind of where I want to be.
Yeah, definitely. That's amazing too. Congratulations with all that, because it takes a lot to give back, I think, and it takes a lot out of people. So it's awesome.
Cool, thanks.
Now, you've kind of talked about these moments of adversity, whether it was working really hard to support your son at a younger age, and even the housing market crash in 2009. What did you learn from these moments of adversity? And do you think it's defined who you are today?
No, without rain, flowers don't grow. Rain creates rainbows. And so I feel that everything that I've been through, even having to work hard or having a son at a young age, continues to mold me, and it shaped me into who I am. So there is, when I look back at every single instant, good or bad, I think that's when I was learning. You're always learning. I'm learning a new guideline every day. I just found out my company is now offering this crazy stated income loan program that allows us to do investor properties. We haven't been able to do that since 2006. Now we have the most open, free program that makes the most sense. And I just learned that, today and yesterday. So constantly learning, I think my mind never really shifted. I always wanted to help people, right? I think that was kind of just inherently I think shifting my business focus to that, a lot of that I credit to my business partner, Clint Rooney. He was definitely instrumental in that mental shift with me. He helped me get involved in the master's program and things like that. Encourages me to be a member of the Edina Rotary, stuff like that. So, yeah.
That's great. Do you think social media and constant innovation and technology has really impacted your line of work?
Absolutely. And I'm all about, if you can't beat them, join them. And so, I think the 7 worst words a person could ever say is, I've always done it this way, right? And if you're not ready to adapt, you'll die. And so I think my company, when I say my company, I'm talking PRMG on a national level. We are early adopters when it comes to technology. So we see what's out there, we watch it work a little bit, and then we jump on. I don't think we're going to be the first ones to ever try something out, because those things break, right? We want to be the guy that says, this model's working, now how can we take it, improve on it? It's guerrilla marketing at its finest. So that's,
Now you use it through your Instagram to kind of self-promote your work. You use a lot of motivational content and tips and tricks as well. How else do you self-promote your work?
A lot of my stuff, like I said, is really just getting out there and meeting the people within the community. PRMG from the top down has told me from the very beginning that they are a relational community purchase company. And so that was a shift for me too, because for the first 10 years, I was pretty refinance heavy. And so shifting to working in that direction and then utilizing the technology, the social media platforms to get business. I mean, there's just so many different avenues. We are the preferred lender for Wausau Homes. My branch here in Minnesota, we're the preferred lender for Wausau Homes. And so, we get a lot of referrals that way. We do a lot of deals with some of the top real estate teams in the state. And so really it kind of comes from every angle. Social media is definitely a platform that people can advertise on for free. I'd say it's probably one of the best there is. There's no doubt about that. But it's not, if you stay with blinders on, right, you're never going to see all the other things that you could take advantage of. And so we try to stay wide open to what's happening, how the market is shifting, where's technology going, and go that way.
Now, a constant theme that I've kind of noticed from the experts that we've interviewed is they do a lot of goal setting. Do you do any of this yourself?
Absolutely. And what's good that I can say this probably that for August, September, and now October, my company, my team here has broke through the roof of our goals and has set a new bar almost every month. So it's kind of hard to keep up with right now. It's like, where do you set it next? So there's a couple of guys that are going to be looking for their bonuses here pretty soon because it's been pretty awesome.
Right. Did you kind of do this at the beginning of your career, or was there a certain point where you're like, I kind of have to start doing this to make myself better?
The goal setting thing, I think, was part of the culture at the first company I worked at. I worked at a company called Mortgage Elite for 10 years under the ownership of a guy named Greg Evenson. And he was one of my first mentors. And I was, he's 10 years older than me. And I told him I'd do everything 10 years later, right? So I'm just kind of always catching up. He's retired, ran a very successful mortgage company for several years. And I think that's where the goal setting started. It started with, okay, this month I got to do $1 million. Next month I got to do $2 million. I also am very competitive. I'm very competitive. And I like to be competitive with my inner office, and I like to be competitive with the other guys nationally. And so it's important for me to watch myself moving up those tracks. And instead of saying I want to do $5 million a month because this is going to make X amount of dollars and then I'm going to do X amount of cars, take X amount of vacations. For me, it's that I'm going to close X amount of loans so that I can exceed and pass up this guy over here, so that I can donate more time and money to my community, so then I can exceed this goal, so I can pass this guy over here. It's that way. That's how it is for me.
Now, is that a trait that you've had since you were a kid, or did that kind of develop after playing basketball against that kid next door?
Always been competitive. I wasn't always the best at everything, but I strived to be. And that's, I wasn't the best basketball player. I wasn't the best football player. I wasn't the best baseball player. I wasn't the best at math. I wasn't the best at reading, writing, arithmetic, science, you name it, right? But now I'm pretty good at math. I'd say that I'm number one loan officer right now by units and volume for PRMG in the Midwest. I hit that one. And I need to catch these other guys like Jordan Freeland and those guys in Florida, or Ben Anderson in California. Those are some pretty big numbers, but those are my next kind of goals. Those are my goals, to kind of exceed that, move on to other things.
Well, it's clear that you're driven, so I hope you can get there, man.
Yeah. And Ben Anderson is my coach, so it's kind of one of those where the student's trying to exceed the master.
Right. Now you kind of talked about the demographic of some of these loan officers and how a lot of them, the average age is like 55. You talked a little bit as well about how there are quite a few barriers to enter. Do you find that there's a lot of turnover in the industry as well, or?
I feel like there are more people exiting than entering, for sure. Bigger banks, I won't name them because I don't want to get in trouble, but bigger banks will lay off people when things slow down, and then they'll hire them back on when things pick up. So in Minnesota, for instance, we have a pretty slow season, December, January, February, due to the extreme colds and the snow. People just don't move. So we do have that. And I think that the turnover ratio is pretty bad, because think about it. The people that are in the industry, this is what they do, and most of them have been doing it now 5+ years, right? So they're going to stay in the business. It's whether or not they're going to stay at their company. And it depends on their company culture, right? So if their company culture is somewhere you just don't want to show up, or you got this boss breathing down your neck, or somebody micromanaging you, We always try to make a fiction in their video, like, if you don't want your branch manager all up in your videos, then come on up here, MG. But it's seriously, that's really, it's like the culture is a big part of it, why people stay where they're at. But generally, people don't leave. Once you're a loan officer for 5 years, you generally don't leave and go do something different, because you do make more money as a loan officer than most other industries. And you got this thing that nobody else can do, right? So recruitment is tough, because recruiting good talent, people who care about people, is my number one goal. And I will take a person who can close $500,000 over somebody closing $5 million a month if their attitude stinks and they don't care about people, right? So for me, I need to have somebody that would be all about helping the community, down to get out and do what it takes to make it happen, and wants to grow. Somebody who's excited about, what it is that they do and how helping other people is impactful to their community, stuff like that. That's what I look for when I hire people.
Yeah. And yourself being someone that's been in the industry for 18 years now, you've learned a lot, obviously. What are some of your key takeaways that you think you can kind of reflect on over your career?
The biggest one is that having a tough shell. Because in our business, the people that you do the most for, like the client you bend over backwards, and you lose sleep over making their deal work, and you get up at 6 a.m. and you do it pro bono, that client will never thank you, and you got to get over it, right? And so that's one of the biggest takeaways, is that do it for your purpose, not because you're looking for verbal or some sort of kudos or reward. They don't make awards for what we do, so don't expect it.
Yeah, and I know everyone's different in the world, but can you tell us some of the most impactful client relationships that you've had?
Well, I have a story about a client that recently purchased a property that's pretty interesting. So my business partner, Clinton, was helping put on a seminar at Meridian Behavioral Health, which is a place where people, it's a treatment center. And essentially this woman had met him outside and said, "Hey, I heard what you said. I want to become a homeowner." And when he looked at her, he said, "Okay, so what's your situation?" She says, "Well, I don't have a job right now. I'm living out of my car. I'm taking care of kids. I need a place to stay. It's put over my head." He said, "Here's my card. Call me. We'll get it figured out." Right? And she's looking at him like, "Get out of here." Well, fast forward, after 6 months of credit repair, she found a job. She calls us up and invites us over to her housewarming party. And, I'm sitting there and I meet, her grandkids. We're outside, barbecuing with family. And I go into the kitchen and just get myself a glass of water. And one of the kids runs up to Clint and goes, "Hey, come downstairs. I want to show you something." And he goes, "This is where my house is going to be at. This is where my TV is." I mean, not my house. He said, "This is where my bed's going to be at. This is where my TV is going to be at. This is where the PlayStation's going to go." And that's the kind of stuff, man, that really makes a difference for us to be like, wow, this is the impact that we're having. So yeah, that was one of the real cool things that we were able to do.
Yeah.
One of the stories, I mean, I could go on forever for 18 years on that,
Now, if you were to give advice to someone wanting to get into the industry, whether they're a loan officer or even just a real estate agent, what would that advice be?
If you're trying to get in the industry now as a loan officer, and this is the goal that you want to go after, make good money, we're able to help people, if this is something you want to do, then I would suggest getting some entry-level training at one of the larger banks. Again, I won't say their names, but look at your larger banks. They're always hiring loan officers, loan officer assistants, processors, and things like that. Get 2 to 3 years of experience under your belt that way before you find a retail lender like myself, or a broker to go with. Okay? You will make more money once you transition to that direction, but you want to make sure that you have the know-how and know the workings of a mortgage before you would attempt to go just become a broker. If you had a friend who's making $10,000 a month, well, he's probably been doing it for 5 or 6 years, and he had to go through tons of hoops to get there. So you will get there, but just know that you have to go through the training. You get paid at those bigger banks for a little bit to help you stay afloat. That'd be the best way to start learning, with the eye of, I'm going to transfer over to something on more of a retail or broker side.
Now, Forrest, we've talked a lot about your line of work as well as a little bit about your personal life. How do you balance all this?
It's difficult. No sleep, right? No, the human body doesn't need a ton of sleep. 6 to 8 hours is really all you need. So you can get a lot done in a day if you just keep your head down, stay off of social media, you stop watching TV, things like that. I mean, there's a lot of places people realize that. Here's a thought somebody told me once. Back in the day, right? People had to wash their clothes by hand, right? With like lye soap on one of those boards, right? You had to take your big chunk of beef out of like your freezer and cut it. You had to ride a horse and buggy into town to go grocery shopping. How is it that we don't have time? We have cell phones. We have computers. How do we not have time? So it's maximizing your efficiencies through the technology and resources that you have to find more time. And then eliminating some of the noise and stay focused more on your green time.
And you talked a little bit about how you just traveled with your family. Do you try to do that as much as you can?
Absolutely. You got to be able to enjoy the spoils of war sometimes, right? It doesn't make you a bad person if you enjoy your life. And so I try to find time to do that, make sure my family's too.
Now, do you think traveling the world is one of the best ways to kind of get away from everything and really just get to relax?
It's not always that for me. For me, it's always experiencing new cultures because I tend to stay busy, when I'm traveling. But that's just my thing. Everybody's got their own thing. I like traveling for sure. That's, definitely one of my favorite pastimes. And I think it's because I'm fortunate enough to be able to do so now. People where I come from don't travel to Europe. They don't travel to Iowa, and so for me, the fact that I'm able to do so, I want to make sure that my kids experience what I didn't always have the ability.
Yeah. Now, do you think it's obviously financial limitations are a big part of it, but are there others? Is it like a mindset that certain people have?
I definitely feel like it's a mindset. Some people are just scared to fly, but no, I think for me, that was as soon as I have an opportunity and an open window, I'm on a plane.
Now, kind of going into the last part of our interview here, we'll bring up some stuff about your city as well as some overarching trends. I just wanted to ask you, what's your favorite part about your home?
I'm sorry, one more time?
What's your favorite thing about your home?
My home?
Yeah, they're in Minneapolis.
Oh, like, you mean specifically my house or Minneapolis?
Minneapolis.
Man, Minneapolis is is a melting pot. I like that. Really, you know what? There's a lot of stability in education that's in Minneapolis too. Minneapolis, in some areas, has really good education. So let me be very clear there. In our urban, inner city, abandoned communities, where they're not getting the proper tools necessary to have a great education, resources that are just aren't there. But in some areas, there's great education. So it's kind of a good and bad thing, right? There's definitely it's kind of lopsided. But then there's also a lot of good companies and businesses and opportunity for people to work and have a strong career here. We have several, we have 3M, we have Target, we have Ecolab, we have General Mills, we have, these huge giant companies that allow people to actually have good paying jobs, benefits, that stuff. So we have a good culture of that. Minneapolis likes to take care of its own. We have a great music city as well. We're the home of Prince, right? And so those are some of the things I like about Minneapolis.
Now, can you tell us about some of the hidden gems, whether it's one of your favorite restaurants or just a great view?
Best restaurant in Minneapolis by far is the Butcher and the Boar. Their beef long rib is lights out, hands down. One of my favorite views is overlooking the Stone Arch Bridge at the Guthrie. That's pretty cool. It's a great first date place. On Mondays, they have Acme Comedy Club, and it's free. You go there at 8 o'clock, and it's amateurs, and they're always pretty much a riot, so that's good. We have beautiful lakes. We're home of 10,000 lakes. Lake Minnetonka is super fun. If you know anybody that can pull you out there on a boat during the summer, you'll have a great time. We had Toby Keith, I think, and Faith were out there singing on boats, just free concert last year, stuff like that. It's a lot of those good old traditions. The cabins up north, you can't beat those. the fishing. I love fishing, so fishing.
Do you think Minneapolis is a little bit underrated?
I wouldn't say that. I think we're kind of on the map now. Minnesota Vikings are looking good. We're a big, small city, and I like to keep it that way. I don't want to be the next Chicago. I don't want to be the next LA. I don't want to be the next New York. I like Minneapolis right where it's at.
Mm-hmm. Now, I know, or I'm pretty sure that you would invest in education, but if you were the mayor or in charge of Minneapolis for a day, what would you do?
Ooh, I don't know. Education would be a good one, but housing, affordable housing, man. I've been to San Francisco. I don't know if you've ever been to San Francisco, but San Francisco has guys getting paid 30, 40 grand a year, adults, living in 1 to 2 bedroom homes as roommates, 30, 40, 50 years old, because just to get to where they have to work, they have to live in places that are 3, 4 grand a month to rent, that are 1, 2 bedroom, tiny 5, 6, 700 square foot places. And so Minneapolis is getting to that point. The rental market is increasing to the point where it's not affordable. And so we have, that's why we came up with this development team, Starfish Homes Group. So me and my business partner, we don't just do work. We're working on a development project right now where we're looking to build 25 homes over the next year for affordable housing for Minneapolis. And we want to make it so that people can become homeowners, right? But make it affordable. So it's reaching that 60% area median income and things like that. So working with Starfish Homes Group or working with Habitat for Humanity, for instance, those, coming together with those types of groups to build a more affordable housing, which is what I would do if I was the mayor.
I think this has been an ongoing issue in North America where the rental market has become so expensive and outrageously expensive. I think possibly, of course, the ongoing growth of population has something to do with it, but are there any others that you can think of that may have led to this, to such an expensive state in the housing market today?
Yeah, lack of inventory for sale. Lack of affordable inventory for sale. So the housing prices are going up at such a rapid rate. And so anybody buying in the $150,000 to $250,000 price range, there's 10 to 1 people looking at that property. So people are throwing up their hands and then they're becoming renters. Well, then you're driving this huge pocket of people now to become renters that would traditionally be buyers. And so now that creates, well, I can now get $1,200, I can get $1,400, I can get $1,500. And that number keeps going up rapid, but wages aren't increasing. People are still having babies. Millennials are now having babies and moving up from the condo down to a house, and they're jumping into that $250,000 bucket, and they're beating out some of these people who that's all they can afford.
Of course, just to just building off of that, do you think there's a fix to this?
Build more affordable housing. There's a lot of land, right, that is owned by state and city governing bodies, and so they need to keep. There's people who have the heart and will to build this stuff, right? Starfish Homes Group definitely has the heart and will to build it and has all the pieces. So it's maybe making the systems flow a little bit faster for those pieces to go, because for the normal person who doesn't have the size of a team that Clint Rooney and I work with within Starfish Homes Group, jumping through the hurdles of doing affordable housing development it seems like a lofty or far-fetched goal, but there's a lot of contractors who would be doing it all day long if they just made it a more streamlined process. And the cost of land in some of these urban areas has skyrocketed. So privately held lots are very expensive. The ones that the city owns already that aren't receiving any taxable revenue could have a property built on it, could be receiving taxable revenue, and could be building affordable housing for people.
Now, a lot of these privately owned lots, I'm assuming people that own them are very profit motivated.
The privately owned lots, I'm sorry?
Yeah. Would you say that the people that own them themselves are profit motivated and after that dollar?
Yeah, 100%. And that's nothing to shame them for. I mean, they own the lot and they probably paid a sizable dollar for whatever was on it beforehand, and they're selling it at a profit. I'm all for that. I think that, unfortunately, everybody has to work and make a dime. That's not the issue. The issue is that there are still city and state-owned lots. There's a lot of buildings that were dilapidated, especially in like areas of Detroit, Michigan, and places like that, where there's whole neighborhoods that are, condemned and ready to be torn down. There are people out here that would love to take over those lots, develop them, and sell them to a family, a blue-collar family that's working, to be able to live in affordably. Because once you have a mortgage, that's your mortgage for 30 years. So it's not, you don't have to worry that every time I move, my rent goes up about 50. And what you're doing is you're squeezing families out of a house. The more you increase their rent, but don't increase their wage, every time they have to move, they have to get a smaller place for the same size family or growing family.
Mm-hmm. Now, something that I've kind of noticed is people put up affordable housing close to a sort of wealthy neighborhood, and you'll kind of get this drawback and this struggle from those people in that wealthy neighborhood saying, we've worked so hard throughout our entire lives to be in this area, and they really have a problem with, I guess, less fortunate people being next to them. Is that a social issue that you've kind of seen yourself?
We've ran across it, but the thing is that when people build affordable homes in a community like that, it doesn't bring down the value of their homes. It actually increases the value of their homes in most cases, because they're building newer built properties on there. And how it works when you do affordable housing is that the value of the property, when it's appraised, they take that into account, that there was some sort of subsidy that reduced the price of this and that. There's generally like some sort of land trust that's set up that makes that property affordable for the next 50 years. So that person isn't going to reap the same rewards as a person who didn't buy an affordable housing, but they're still going to get rewards that they wouldn't have as a renter. Does that make sense? So essentially, they're helping the community by building newer properties in the nicer because they're new.
Wow, I didn't even know that. That's amazing. Now, to kind of finish off our interview here, we'll ask you some overarching trends, just to kind of pick your brain on certain things that we've noticed go on throughout the world. The first one is, are you an iPhone or an Android user?
Android, baby. iPhone's a fad. Sorry. Steve Jobs isn't going to get me.
Were you always an Android user, or have you kind of used both?
I tried an iPhone for like all of a month, and I don't use Macs either. I'm a PC guy. And so I just, I'm never going to, I shouldn't say I'm never going to do it. Just not following the fad yet.
Yeah. Now, another thing we've noticed is, are you familiar with Elon Musk?
NMLS?
Elon Musk, are you familiar with him?
Oh, no.
So he's the CEO of Tesla. Yeah.
I didn't hear what you were saying, yes.
Yeah, sorry, the mic's cutting out a little bit, but yeah, of course, he's the owner of Tesla and has all these different business ventures, whether it's the self-driving car, going into space, drilling tunnels. Do you think this is all for some sort of global domination, or do you think he's just trying to...
No, I think he's smart. And, it's funny that you brought this up, because earlier today, I was just talking to a coworker about this driving in a Tesla. So I just got a car I think is pretty fast for, me. And I was asking him, a guy who had a maroon Tesla, how he thinks it would match up in a race. And he was like, this is just smoke your car. And I said, okay, well, let me sit in the passenger seat and take me for a block. And that instant torque thing is no joke. So he built what looks like an economy car, and I think one day those will be affordable, but he made it so that it's fast, it's efficient, it's fuel efficient, it's at the, leading technology when you look at the dash there. So the guy's just smart. I was never mad at a smart person. I don't think I don't think anybody who's smart wants to dominate the world. Doesn't sound like something that a smart guy would do.
Mm-hmm.
Great.
Mm-hmm. Now, of course, something that quite a few people are familiar with is the trade war between the U.S. and China. Can you kind of give us some of your thoughts on that right now?
Yeah, I mean, the global economy, without the trade war lightening up anytime soon, I think interest rates are going to stay pretty low. Okay, we've been tracking the Fannie Mae 30-year bond, and over the last 100-day moving average, it's been pretty consistent. Okay. But I feel that it's kind of one of those things to watch for, especially if you're watching interest rates, because if agreements do come to fruition and that there's some sort of mutual understanding between both the U.S. and China, I think interest rates will then start to stable off and maybe even go back up. But I think that we're going to be able to ride the roller coaster of low rates for at least the next year.
Right. Now, I think people are starting to see that it's affecting other business, even larger ones, such as the NBA. I think they predicted a financial loss for next year because of the ties with China that are kind of being severed with this trade war. Do you think it'll affect just those big businesses or regular day people as well?
I think it's going to trickle down to everybody involved, because you got people working on all ends of it, from the guy that's delivering it to your doorstep to the person who's stocking the shelves at Best Buy to the cashier who's getting time cut back because one of the contracts just pulled out there, So I think, unfortunately, the global economy does affect the average consumer, I think big time. And I think that we, as a country, need to get things figured out. We need to, there's too much turmoil that's happening. They just signed the Brexit deal last week in the global economy, that for us to continue to be stable, we're really approaching another recession. Really. I think another recession is right around the corner for us. I don't see home prices dropping during that recession, but I do see consumers losing their jobs. It's great that our unemployment rate is at an all-time low, but a lot of that is due to the fact that a lot of people are working 2 and 3 jobs to be able to maintain rent and gas and what have you. So I think that number's skewed. And when you look at what unemployment rates are at an all-time low, and you're in a consumer economy like the U.S., what happens is that those bigger entities start to struggle. Then they start to lay off people, and then it starts affecting everybody down the chain. So, yeah, I definitely feel like we need to get it figured out quickly.
Mm-hmm. Do you think we're better prepared for this next recession?
I don't really think there's a way to do so. I think a recession is what it is. I mean, people lose their jobs. You prepare for that, So saying that we're better equipped because we just went through a great recession, I don't think that was preparation for another recession. I just think that the impact it's going to have on interest rates and our housing prices is going to be a little bit different than what we've seen in the past.
Right. Now, the final question we have for you is, what are your thoughts on the ongoing trend of plant-based food products and even the Beyond Meat burger?
Actually, Ryan McGrath is a vegan. So one of our loan officers turned a vegan while I worked. He's been working with us since me and Clint opened our branch in PRMG about 5 years ago. And he was not a vegan. I had plenty of steaks and chicken with him, but now he's a full-blown vegan. We have a vegan cake. It was his birthday last week, and Destiny ran out, got him this huge vegan cake with caramel and almonds. So yeah, I mean, I think it's cool. It's not for me.
Gotcha. So that pretty much brings us to the end of our interview for us. I really appreciate you taking the time with us. We're just pushing an hour here. We really want to thank you for first of all responding to us. Of course, scheduling this. We know you have a busy schedule, so we're very grateful